Warning: the following program may contain material not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
They say for every light in this world, there is a shadow waiting to reclaim it. We've been told what to believe, what to fear, and exactly where the boundaries of real end. But tonight, we're crossing those lines. From the whispers in the attic to the lights in the desert sky and the entities that walk among us, we are stepping behind the veil. Transmitting from deep within the mountains of West Virginia, it's time to seek the truth. This is Let's Find Out with Diego. And now, here is your host, Diego the Podcaster.
On this episode of Let's Find Out, our guest is known worldwide as the Archangel of the Paranormal, the Shaman, co-founder of Wardruna, the man behind the very popular Tuesday morning serial videos, and the host of the new show, Profiled. We're going to dive into the reality of serial killers, occult crimes, and of course, the paranormal. All this plus more. Please welcome our good friend, great supporter of our show, Thomas Patrick. Thomas, my friend, welcome back to Let's Find Out, brother.
Oh, I am so glad to be here. It's been too long, my brother, and I'm ready to talk about anything that you want. The array of things are wide open.
They are, and I sent you, we're going to go over this later. I don't want to spoil it. I sent you a couple of cases, one kind of close to home, and another one that I just learned about, and I was like, what an absurd and ridiculous crime. And I'm saying that just from the way I feel about it, because just when you think people couldn't be sick, they can be. And I mean, I don't know how you handle these things, because you have a lot of experience studying and also your background in law enforcement. And my man, we're going to get into it pretty deep tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And yes, there's tons of sick people out there. Unfortunately, for somebody like me, it doesn't faze me anymore, because if I show that it fazes me, then I give who's across the desk from me the upper hand. So I never want to do that.
Right. And you're the right man for the job for what we're going to be talking about too on this episode of Let's Find Out. Now, I don't know where you find the time. You travel, you speak, you do your investigations. I know you write. You also put out videos, also very cool videos, because something about them, they're very small things in life that people have no idea the origins, where some phrases or some small historical facts that come from. And you covered a lot of that with Tuesday morning serials. And you also, now that you're in Ohio, you cover facts about Ohio. Now, for our friends and listeners who haven't seen the videos yet, what was the last video you recorded and what was it about?
The last few that I recorded, I think Ohio, I talked about some of the weird themed museums. There's a museum that has all of the antique popcorn makers. There's a museum with over 5,000 pencil sharpeners. And another museum, Guinness Book of World Records, for the most troll dolls with over 25,000. That's all here in Ohio. And then the other one, Beyond the Pale, which is words that we haven't heard in a while, but I always like Beyond the Pale. What does that mean? It's back in the day, there was a Latin word that basically it was like palum, that meant stake. So you're claiming your stake. So putting your stakes down, pulling your stakes up, meaning you're moving. That's your area. That's your territory. That's under your jurisdiction. It came to the point where, after that, the Pale became civilized, and Beyond the Pale was for the barbarians, or us favorite people we call the glorious weirdos. That's their area. People that are outside the box or outside the stakes. So, and I can't remember what I did for the Tuesday morning one. But even if you don't, you guys could go back and watch them all. So that, if when I forget, I just tell everybody to go watch every single one of them and catch up.
Because every once in a while, I mean, they'll pop up in my feed, but sometimes they come in out of order. And I'm like, well, I haven't seen this one yet. So, I watch them. And for the topics that you talk about, and they're very short videos, but you pack a lot of information in such a short amount of time. How do these subjects stick out to you? You only need 1 minute, right?
I get 1 minute because after a minute, you don't get the full thing when I repost it from TikTok to Instagram. I know on TikTok you could go a little longer, same thing on Facebook, but anybody that follows me on Instagram, I don't want to leave them out hanging out to dry. So you have that 1 minute to get in there. So I try and push it all my videos 1 minute or less.
And not to give spoilers away, I know you have some plan. What are you be talking about in the next video?
I don't know yet. So by the time this comes out, I think we'll have a few videos out. But I'm always talking about some crazy serial killer weird fact. All the different words or phrases, and of course history. But there's so much different stuff that I haven't covered yet. Especially in Ohio, there's so many weird things. There's a sphere in a cemetery. It's been there since the 1800s. And every month it moves a little bit. It rotates, and people can't figure out why. And it's been rotating. And Ripley's Believe It or Not went out there, and how this just keeps rotating, and it's not by vibration or anything. So that's really odd. The biggest serpent mound been around since the days before our existence or anything like that. Nobody's laid claim to it. Science can't figure it out. They think it's close to 5,000 years old, but nobody can really get the right thing. So there's a lot of debate on that. That's in Ohio. Any of the words that are out there, but there's so many different weird facts of serial killers. And I do remember the one I just, so as we're talking, I remember things, it's just the way my brain works. It just goes in circles sometimes, and it catches up like a merry-go-round sometimes. But the Hillside Stranglers, there was one of them when he was in prison. He wanted to try and convince people that he didn't do it. So he convinced this woman to commit a murder, and he gave her some of his special DNA, if you know what I mean, and to make it look like somebody set him up so he could get taken out of prison, to make him believe that the guy was still out there. But the person she was going to try and kill escaped the situation. And, of course, he remained in prison. But that was a cool little thing that he tried to do. But there's always like those weird things that people try and do. And especially serial killers, they're always trying to manipulate you, get one over on you. So that's just another tactic.
Yeah, and I would say some, because a lot of them actually do the hands-on, as they say, but some of them can just get people to do it for them.
Oh yeah, that's another big thing, and that's what we're seeing a lot in this country now, with certain things. The Epstein Island, and how they got people to recruit people, and those types of things. And it's innocence. People follow innocence. They think, hey, there's nothing wrong here. Oh, I'll go help that person. They can't find their dog. Or, oh, that person's on crutches. Let me help them to their car. We all know how that worked out. It's the tactics that Ted Bundy would use. But people, even nowadays, they want to be helpful. But unfortunately, with the world we live in now, we're so stuck on our phones, we put ourselves in those precarious situations, and not aware of what's going on around us, or trying to help people out, and getting into those types of terrible situations, which of course is my next episode of Profiled. We'll be talking about how to avoid being the victim. So
I'm going to definitely tune into that one. I think it's something everybody needs to listen to. You mentioned something about people getting involved, and we're all busy on our phones. But it's gotten to a point where we're at now, and we can blame whoever, left or right, or the legal system, where there are those that perhaps may be hesitant to help anybody because you don't know, am I going to get blamed for this too? Am I also going to be a victim? And 3, well, they're too scared to get involved. And a lot of people just whip out their phones and film things, but you don't really see many people helping anymore.
No, you don't. It's more rare now. Again, you're right. People just want to whip their phones out and videotape it. There was something recently where there was this kid on a bike or a little motorbike, and this crazy person just got on the sidewalk and started chasing him. But yet there's two different people videotaping, and I didn't hear anybody yelling on the video, "Hey kid, get out of the way." They just videotaped it. So I don't know what the context of it was or anything like that. But yeah, that's people. There's less empathy. I think a lot of it during COVID, a lot of people's empathy or care for the fellow man really changed. So it's a behavioral thing. It's something that I pick up on, being a behaviorist, former profiler. All those are things that I look at of, it's not just the individual change, it's our society change. It's to the point where how our brain works. There is the ability, especially during COVID, we're all home, that, what we call PSYOP, where we can get a whole group of people to change how they think. And you stew on that for a while, and we're in a totally different trajectory.
We are now, and I hate to bring this up, and is that something strictly that's more common in this country, or is this a global? And I ask that because every once in a while I'll stay up late. I'm watching videos on X or wherever. I've seen somewhere people are trying to steal from a lady or beat somebody up, and half the town kicks the crap out of this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They don't hesitate to lend a hand. I don't see that as much here. Now, is that more of we're talking about culture, is that more something that's happening on this side of the world?
I'm glad that you said that. Well, this is something that I observed even in my younger days. Our society, the way we look at it, in other societies are totally different. Some societies still look at it as an eye for an eye. Over here, everybody's so afraid that they're going to go to jail, they're going to get sued or anything like that. But it goes back to when we were younger. We live in a society where we applaud or give the instigator the benefit. Okay? So when we're younger, let's just say little Sally's sitting there, she has pigtails, and some kid grabs her pigtails and pulls them, and she screams, "Ouch!" And then the teacher says, "No yelling in class, you get out of my class." Little Sally was just trying to sit there. So the instigator is the one that pulled the hair, but yet Sally got in trouble. But that's our society. Even now, let's say you're driving your car, by law, if you hit somebody from behind, of course it's your fault. But you get the people that slam on their brakes. They become the instigator to create that because they know they're using the law or your behavior to your advantage. And that's the problem with the society, I think, here in America. I think other countries to a point, but not as much. But you really look at this country, if we're looking at numbers, we're talking about my background with serial killers. Do you realize the active cases that are the solved cases by number, over 70% of known serial cases are in the U.S. over all the other countries in the world. Over 70%. So what does that tell you about how our society looks at things? How much stimulus we're getting? What's getting put into our food? There's so many different things that this perfect storm creates. I'm not even going to go into the conspiracy theories of children that were part of MK Ultra, and then they have kids, and then there's that attachment of that familiar DNA and epigenetics and those types of things, and how they're still influenced by that government type of program. But there's so much that goes into it. Who knows what they're doing in this country? There's so much psyop going on right now. We watch stuff, especially the news. My favorite thing is if you watch, Conan O'Brien used to do this. He would show, there was a news clip. Oh, this bear climbed the tree and got some honey out. Oh, it's such a nice story. Yay, everybody's happy. But there's over 50 stations talking about the same story. So he goes from each station from different states. It's almost like an Associated Press thing where everybody has this story, but everybody talks about it on the same day. What is the purpose? There is some purpose in that. There is that psyop, or is that trying to bring in that, hey, that good thing so they could put in the bad thing. They're taking our attention away, or they're red flagging it. So there is that behavioral side of things, and some of us that being the forensic psychology and how we look at things, and just CIA operatives and how they're able to know these things, or even a hypnotist and how he's going to hypnotize you, knowing things that you do and how we do as human beings and how we can control. And that's the scary part.
Oh, you just touched on something right there. And that's why I tell people, when you talk to Thomas Patrick, he's the real deal. And I mean that with all the love, because this, I want to say a nanosecond after I thought the word MK Ultra, you mentioned MK Ultra. It was like you and I.
To me.
Well, I mean, as seen on television, 100%. And with these tactics, we're talking about like agencies that put out these tactics in society for the last several decades, and they get the results that they want. Changes in behavior, culture, even art. All these things are all in one big universe there.
Mm-hmm.
These same tactics, can anyone use them, or is there something? And I know we're jumping way ahead. We're talking about serial killers and people who manipulate. Where would they learn these things? Where would they learn these skills that they can get people to change their behavior and then start using this for nefarious reasons?
Well, you can pretty much learn it anywhere. There's so much information nowadays. The information now that's out there, it's dangerous. But you really have to go. The thing is for me, I learned psychology, right? But I could learn everything that I want. But it's when you apply it is when it really comes into fruition. Learning from others as they apply. So they apply those skills and what we learn. But you have to know the people, and people in general. You know, there's the magicians and all that, like the amazing Kreskin, who would do the mind stuff with people. He just knew human nature. A lot of it, was it magical? Yes, it appears magical, but there's a purpose behind it. It's knowing human behavior and what they're going to do and how they're going to lean, in how they say things, how their eyes move. Like if he did a trick where he would tell him to hide something and he would find it somewhere in this big like building. Everybody knew where they hid it, but everybody knows when he's looking and he gets close, he sees their eyes go wide. So he knows it's there. So it's you knowing your human nature and how you react. Who's surprised? Who's not believing you? How their feet are turned, like if they're not interested in the conversation, or if they're very opinionated and you don't care what you're saying, they might fold their arms, more inquisitive. Or if you're sitting there having a conversation, you know it's going well, because if I'm doing this with my hands and the other person's doing that with their hands, it's that symbiotic type of relationship going on where they're interested in what you're saying because they're mirroring you. So there's a lot of things to pick up on people, or a lot of people that are in somewhere, because I tell this to people all the time, just because of my training and how I am. I'll enter a building or a restaurant and I have to sit facing the door. When I walk in, within 5 seconds, I could tell you where all the exits are, all the people in there. If something happens, who could help, who might be a hindrance, or who might be the problem. So, and just in a matter of seconds. And that's training, but it's also where I have this difficulty with my training. I also have my shamanism, where I pick up on those things, but also my traumas growing up as a kid and being more hypervigilant and those types of things and what I went through. So I put all three of those together. That's my perfect triangle, and why I do these things and how I pick up these things. So it's just a little different. Like I say, to be a good profiler or to be good at what you do, it comes with life experience. Like my partner, Stacia, has a lot of life experience. That's what makes her a good tarot card reader, because she can interpret more off of life experience. Just like as I profile my life experience, I could pick up on something that somebody else may not. That's why it takes a village or a team to be able to bring conclusion to maybe a certain case, and having those open opinions with each other and their life experience and how we could come to that conclusion.
And you're talking straight to my heart when you're saying not being every restaurant I go to, I have to be facing a door. And sometimes there are places where there are multiple doors. So I got to sit strategically to try to see if I keep my eye on the back door and the front door. And then if I'm with a friend that has the same things, I can trust them. Okay, good. We're all keeping an eye 360. But can I relax and have a meal? Maybe. But, you know, I think it might be a human nature in itself where, and I don't want to sound, it might sound sexist to some, I don't mean it to, but I think maybe it's a guy thing as well. You know,
it is. It's just naturally has men just genetically and over time since we were in cavemen. It's a protective thing. It's just part of our DNA that we're not going to change if we're a normal, you know, human male or whatever. Even when I walk with somebody on the sidewalk, I make sure that my side, I'm close to the traffic. I still open the door for Stacia. You know, I still do these things, but I naturally do them. I don't even think about them. And that's just, it's a protective thing, you know, and women are more want to nurture and all that. There's these different behaviors that we understand. It's part of our DNA, you know, and but it's part of our upbringing. It is a nature nurture thing with that type of reaction as human beings, to male to female and all that. And that's what makes a great relationship too, when you do understand those things about each other, why you do what you do.
And you know what the funny thing about this is, what we just talked about there. For me, like when I'm with my wife, you know, I'm on street side, I open the doors. You know, I said my back is not away from doors at restaurants, all those things that you and I had very similar in common. But to me there might be a couple times where I might slip, but I always feel like something's tugging me, making me move. And it's not something I'm doing. It's like, no, you're in the wrong place. I almost feel like somebody's moving my arm saying, no, you need to be here. I don't know. Is that weird? Is that how I'm explaining it?
It's definitely not. I've said this before. Your loved ones never leave you. There's ones that are guiding you and giving us information or leading us the right way. Even when we forget, there's always that reminder there of some ancestor in our life that's helping us out. It's don't take that turn, take the left, don't take the right today. You don't understand why, but if we could trust our gut, and when we get that feeling and all that, a lot of time we avoid things. You know, that's the spiritual listening and all that. We are still human beings. We might, for me, for years, I didn't want to, you know, everybody, my spirit guides are coming through, and at the time I didn't understand what it was, and they said, you're a shaman, and I didn't want to listen. I didn't trust my gut, and it you know, it brings like things that happen in your life as a human. It gets terrible at times. That we call it the shaman sickness, when you keep denying your calling or your purpose. And once you take it, yeah, there's still things that happen, but you have a better understanding about it and how to deal with it, and your ancestors are there to guide you. So.
You know, and hopefully it's be one of those things after I pass away, maybe I could provide the same service for my descendants.
Yeah.
And guide them too. You know, hopefully that I'll do a good job in the afterlife.
Raph, not without a doubt that you'll probably be one of the best spirit guides for somebody that's part of your family. Definitely. So.
Well, thank you for that, my friend. And now we're going to get into your new podcast. And it did surprise me, because normally you tell me everything. And I was like, what? He didn't say nothing, which is good. I love being surprised. Profile. This is right up your alley. I think you were born for this. This is your purpose. We're going to make sense of some of these crimes. So let's jump into something real quick, because we all watch television, movies, TVs. We're Netflixing all the time. My wife, for some reason, finds it relaxing to watch these shows. I don't know why. I'm like, are you trying to get ideas? Because I don't see how this is very relaxing for you. But I'd like to know how they figure this out. How did they catch him? There's a thrill to it. With Hollywood being the way it is, and we've watched thousands of movies in our lifetime. When it comes to movies about serial killers or crimes, or even crimes that have a paranormal twist to it or history to it, which ones have gotten it right? Because I know sometimes Hollywood likes to take that poetic license and create their own thing. But in your opinion, out of all the movies you've seen, can you name one or two that perhaps maybe there were balls on? Right.
There's a few. You just got to understand about me. Of course, I'm going to rip it apart. When you're in it and it's like, oh yeah, that's this, that, this. But entertainment purposes are close. Some of them that really draw off of real life serial killers to create a character. Case in point, one of my favorite of all time, and a lot of people love, is Silence of the Lambs. That's one of my favorite. And, the characters were developed by Thomas Harris, like so well that a lot of people don't understand is Hannibal Lecter was based off of somebody that he wasn't going to study. He went to Mexico to study this guy for the book. So he gets there to the prison and all that, and this guy greets him and he's helping him out, and he has this, way about him, the way he talks, very intelligent and all this other stuff, and he's helping him out. And later he interviews the guy, and he asked the warden guy or whoever he was, who was that guy? Oh, that's Dr. So-and-so. Oh, that's cool. Well, he's in prison for the rest of his life because he killed all these people. But because of his demeanor and how he delivered himself is just like Hannibal Lecter's demeanor and how he delivered himself. So we use that in the book to develop that character. But also in there, when Hannibal Lecter helped the FBI find Buffalo Bill, that's based off of another case. Robert Kepler, who I got to meet when he was a professor in the University of New Haven in Connecticut, I got to sit down in some of his classes. He was part of tracking down the Green River Killer, and also part of the Bundy one when they were out in Washington, because Bundy originally was killing people in Washington before they caught him in Florida. So Kepler used a profile and sat with Bundy, and Bundy profiled almost perfectly the Green River Killer. Unfortunately for Bundy, by the time they caught the Green River Killer, Bundy had already been put in the electric chair. But when they found him, his profile was like spot on, like, everything about him. It was almost like they might have been exchanging letters. That might be why he knew. But of course, for sometimes, like in Silence of the Lambs, you have that air about you that I'm not going to give my guy away. I'll give the information and let them figure it out. It's a game, to Hannibal Lecter. But that same thing. But of course, Buffalo Bill, making the skin suit, put the lotion, again, that goes to Ed Gein, and him, and when he was caught making furniture out of skin, and he had a belt he made out of nipples, and you name it, he used all the body parts like a good Indian tribe would do back in the day, and use everything. But that's like all the study. Thomas Harris put the time in the study and all that, and even the guy that ran the hospital or ran the FBI in Silence of the Lambs, I forget the character's name, but that's based off of John Douglas, who was one of the first people to start the BSU at Quantico and all that, where we get the book Mindhunter, the TV show Mindhunter. So it was Ressler and Douglas are the ones that interviewed all these people in prison to get a lot of the information that we have now, and how we're able to pinpoint in a little better on suspects and bring the pool down of suspects just going off of a profile.
You mentioned something about when Ted Bundy was cooperating with law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And other serial killers probably have done the same thing as he did. What is, I want to use, let's say the FBI or any random law enforcement agency. And I know probably get a thrill out of it for catching other people, and probably because maybe they admire their tactics, or maybe it's like, well, maybe he ripped my tactics off. So for somebody like Ted Bundy, what is their hopes and what kind of deal is he creating with law enforcement? And I'm not trying to be funny, but this is the only way I can probably get my point out. Is he okay? If I help you catch this guy, does he get more time at the basketball court? Is he getting more mashed potatoes in his plate during dinner time? What does he get out of it other than the thrill of catching the
Yeah.
other killer? What are they promising? Like a Ted Bundy, what would they promise him?
There, I really don't know if anything was promised, but you really got to look at it. But Bundy, death penalty, no matter what. But sometimes with his manipulation, his IQ was up there. A lot of people don't realize there was like all these they have low IQs, 90 or less. They've been IQ'd at. There's only very few. I think the highest scoring IQ was actually Jeffrey Dahmer, then along with Ed Kemper, the co-ed killer, and Bundy. But that manipulation, the game they were playing to catch the guy, but it's also that self-preservation of a psychopath. They don't care about anybody else. They only care really about themselves and that preservation. So his hope was probably, hey, maybe I could get out of the death penalty, or yeah, maybe I could get more time, or just the fact that somebody's killing people in the same area I did, and I want to stop him before he outdoes me. It's an ego thing.
Oh, okay.
It's a competitive thing. That's why a lot of serial killers, when they're caught, they admit to more murders than they actually can be found out. So they want to be the best. They want to be the more infamous. And it is a competition, just like anything. We compete all the time. Who's got the best team, or who's the best at this? And even serial killers compete with each other too. So they want to be the most well-known. They want to be that Bundy. They want to be that Dahmer. They want to be the John Wayne Gacy or any of those types of people. So it's, hey, if I'm caught, I might as well be the most infamous. I might as well make some stuff up. But, that's what happens sometimes.
And that makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
The ego, the huge driver for a lot of these people. And it could be talking about maybe being in competition to outdo probably somebody they admired. Like maybe Ted Bundy, like you say, he might have loved Dahmer. So, well, I want to kill more people than Dahmer. He can't outdo me, And that probably goes back also to ancient times when emperors or generals, they wanted to take over lands and conquer as many people as they can. Well, I want to be bigger than Alexander the Great or Genghis Khan. So maybe there's something to that. Now that we're moving into some of these cases, we talked about two. I sent them to you on text, and I know that you did your thing. And one of the first ones I'm going to bring up, only because not that I knew the person, but I knew a person that knew that person. Back when I was in high school, this was in the late to early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend at the time. She was actually trading letters, and we're not talking emails. We're talking about actual snail mail, where she was receiving correspondence from this. It was a young man, a kid, a teenager, and I'll divulge the name here in a second. So here's the thing that he did. He was the youngest person to be executed in the United States. Murdered his parents, and I believe also a store clerk in the mid-'80s.
Mm-hmm.
His claim, and this is where it gets a little bit weird, perhaps, and the paranormal may come into play. He claimed he was a high-ranking member of a satanic coven. He was demonically possessed. During the murders, he even claimed his vows to Satan gave him supernatural powers. And I've heard this in the past where some may think they get some sort of force field around them for each killing they do or performing certain types of ceremonies. Later in his life, while he was incarcerated, he became a devout Christian. And I think he actually wrote a book, and then we're talking about he might have not taken responsibilities for his actions. So we're talking about satanic possessions or demon possessions. We're talking about, he also talked about the dangers of Dungeons and Dragons. The name of this kid, Sean Sellers. And it's been, gosh, I don't know, what is it, 30 some years now that's gone past, and he's already been executed, obviously, by now. One thing is, first rule, don't correspond with a serial killer in prison. Two, during the course of the conversation I had with this friend at the time, and the conversations were very friendly at first. Each letter kind of took a twist for the worse. It got worse, worse, and worse until she said, "I can't correspond with this guy anymore." So I don't know where you want to start with this one. I guess let me look at the whole thing of somebody murdering their parents, and I don't see any history of abuse so far where he's saying that he was demonically possessed. Um, if you want to care to unwrap that one, because I'm still not really sure what this guy is trying to claim here.
Yeah. Well, you really got to go back to what you're talking about. Was there physical abuse? And I think in this case there was. Let's look at it this way. I talked about this the other day on actually Profiled about how we raise our children and things that they see and they learn from. Now, in the Sellers situation, the family was very transient. I think he had moved like 30 times by the time he was 16. There was physical abuse. He had the deep-seated issues of self-worth. He sought, those extreme subcultures for control is what happens. When you have no control, this is what happens with bullies too. When you have no control at home or you're being abused, you tend to go one of two ways, where you're really don't want to be part of any social stuff, you're staying away, or you're more on top of it as a bully in a way. So you're trying to find control. It's that identity fracture that some of these kids have. With him, he wanted control and wanted to feel like he belonged because, he probably didn't feel like he belonged in his own home. That's why people get involved with cults and things like that, where a cult leader or somebody that wants to groom, like some of these, sexual predators do, but it's also cult people do. They groom, try and get you part of the cult and build you up or give you that reason to belong where, with him, whether he was in a satanic cult or not, I really don't know. I know that he had, there was something about him building an altar in an old farmhouse that nobody was in anymore. So he was almost like building this own thing, his own evil fantasy world, which some kids might do. Sometimes you see kids drawing in class because of some major thing happened to them at home. They start drawing it out. So we know something's going on, things to look out for. And really, even what I'm just talking about right now, classroom, I think days before he killed his parents, he wrote an essay in English stating that Satanism made me a better person. I'm free. I can kill without remorse. So I don't know if the teacher didn't do anything about it or there wasn't enough time to really jump on this, but it does say that they notified the mother immediately. She tried to, have a plea of love to her son, but it escalated. And 3 days later, that's kind of when that all went down. So you have that. There's that divide that we always got to constantly communicate with our kids, whether they like it or not. Because, of course, when they grow up and they're normal, well, sort of normal, they're going to thank you for that. So we have to go through the aches and pains of teaching our kids to, if they have hard feelings or if they are angry about something, just trying, why is that making you angry? And like work them through the process of, but so many parents, when their kids get mad and they just say, yeah, just go in your room and cry about it or something, it's just not that easy anymore. You and I grew up Generation X, which is when this was occurring at the time, it's mid-'80s, where, again, satanic panic was going on at the time. So there's those influences. Also, I think one of his lawyers tried to plead insanity or his influence playing Dungeons and Dragons. So that's, if a lot of people know at our age, that's the big case where they were blaming, satanic stuff on playing Dungeons and Dragons too at the time, because we're talking mid-'80s. Same time that they based the show Stranger Things on, which all the weird stuff happens and all that. And when, I don't want to date myself, but that's the era I grew up in. I was in high school at the time. just getting into high school, because I think it was 85, 86. Around there. And it's funny because for me, at the time this is all going on, is the same 85, 86 is when I met Ed and Lorraine Warren, and I started getting my building blocks to be who I am today. And so that was like almost the start of this case, and us talking about it is almost like a full circle moment, because the satanic panic is one of the big reasons why the Warrens went out and talked at colleges to these kids about the dangers of it and what their intentions they were putting in not doing things properly and all that. So that's a big thing. And, kids ate that stuff up. Kids like this, hey, I'm angry. Let me go do this. But then when something goes bad, let me blame it on this. All right. Let my lawyers blame it on this. Let everybody have the perception that, hey, I'm possessed. The thing is about possession, you can't just say you're possessed and then the next day you're not. When you are possessed, until somebody relieves you of that with whether it be a Catholic priest, a shaman like me, whatever your backing is, whatever your belief system is, if this guy went off to jail and became a born-again Christian, I didn't hear about any exorcism going on over his spiritual battle for his soul. There's nothing that I could find that says that. So technically, if he was possessed, he'd still be possessed up to the point that they put him to death back in the 90s. So, but I think he claimed at one time he made up a name, or I don't know, probably read some book, but he claimed there was a demon called Ezeret who was the one possessing him and all. So, but it's that schizotypal traits, our fantasies and all that, and how we bring fantasies into reality and our intention and how those work, being left alone, moving all the time, the abuse, how the mind works and how that perfect storm happens for him to do what he did. That's a lot that goes to that certain case, being a first-degree murder, saying he was possessed, but yet if he was possessed, he wouldn't have the frame of mind when he killed his parents to move the bodies to make it look like a break-in. So that tells me he had the frame of mind, the cognizance of right and wrong, and decided, hey, I'm going to move the bodies because I know what I'm doing and I'm doing wrong. So that, hence your first-degree murder. And that's, kind of what's going on with that case. And, you talk about him being in prison, and then you talked about earlier as we're going into this, he became, Christian, very religious and all that. And we talk about it before. Really, what is going on here, is one of two things. We'll look at it, is it a behavioral reform? I think in this situation with people that might have, that antisocial disorder behavior, whether they lean towards a psychopath or a sociopath. With him, I'm not sure. I don't know fully how he was with, socially. Was he popular? Was he able to move in things? Was he not? Was he a little more, kind of scattered, not able to keep jobs or anything like that? I know he was only 16. But you look at the behavioral reform, really people like that, unless something was done early, which I don't think it was in this case because he murdered, you really never get rid of that behavior. Nothing really is that saving grace. But, I think because he was profoundly traumatized as an adolescent, you want to see if he genuinely neurologically, which I doubt because it's been changed, to morally mature, over that 13 years of forced isolation and becomes a Christian. That's the perfect way that should happen. But for me, being a forensic psychologist, I'm very skeptical on that. The way I look at it is more of the religious pivot. It's a highly sophisticated, adaptive survival mechanism when you're in prison about to get the death penalty. It's a script, if they're well read, trying to manipulate their behavior, is trying to manipulate, again, that seeking of clemency. So I think in this situation, that's what it was. Just by reading the notes and a little bit about the case, how I perceive it and how I would perceive it as a profiler, especially for somebody that is looking to try and get out. That those are the things that we have to look at. And in this case, that's where it led. And the claims that he had multiple personality disorders, that's another big thing that people talk about. Did he have multiple personality disorders, or with the dissociative identity disorder, where people dissociate and then they think they're possessed, or they gravitate towards that, like we talked about before, where it's that fantasy world, that evil fantasy world, satanic or anything like that. It's some kids go to that when they're abused. Their minds have to go to where they're safe. When we're young, we want to go where we're safe. So they start creating that when they don't have somebody to help them. So if he's left and isolated like he was, supposedly, he didn't feel like he could talk to his parents. So for him to feel safe, he had to go to that fantasy world. Whether it be as he got older, hey, I'm going to go do this satanic stuff that I keep seeing, this panic and all that. But multiple personality disorders, I don't think so. Sometimes each individual trauma that you have, and you go to that safe place, you tend to take on those characteristics. So him saying it's Satan and all that and kills, that's his safe place to take control back that he didn't have as a kid. That's how his mind forms. Or anything else. Some people that are sexually assaulted, they're safe places they go, and they go back to that childhood where they were safe. Or some kids, they start acting like a baby again because that's the last time they were safe. So their mind goes there when that something's triggered. And this kid's just was triggered by certain things. And I think, nobody's a perfect parent, but he was failed in that aspect. And also his village, the school, kind of failed him a little bit too. There wasn't that reaction. There wasn't that building for him. Hence the perfect storm to become a murderer.
Well, and it's probably a story we've heard hundreds of times in the history of our country. And now with his story, it's a little bit all over the road. And I appreciate you correcting me on the fact of the parents, but perhaps if it's something that he reported, I mean, could he have made that up? Was he involved in a sort of fantasy world where he thought things were happening? Maybe they weren't happening?
Potentially, because sometimes they make that up, like Dahmer. Everybody, he had a great childhood, but the only problem was his parents argued a lot before they divorced. But then when, Dahmer's dad met a new woman, they spent a lot of time together without Dahmer because he was a little older at the time, but still in that impressionable age. So he was left on his own. So that's another big thing. When you're isolated like that with nobody to interact with to help you build that bridge like parents are supposed to, you're neglected. That neglect goes a long way. And it could create these stories. But I think in this situation, what you could find, there's probably family members that came in and talked about certain things, or somebody that's close, or neighbors that heard stuff. Is it made up sometimes? Yes, because the thing is most serial killers they're going to manipulate you. Even us, when we get information from serial killers like Douglas and Ressler did for all those years, how much of that information was just to try and get one over on you, and how much of it was real. So there's that discernment that comes in on some of these cases too. And I think we're better at discerning the criminal mind now than we were, of course, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of things have changed since then. And I think now, in a way, times a little more dangerous. And I'm not talking about just the physical. I'm talking about the information that people see or accept, or perhaps, let's look at it like this. We're spending an awful lot of time on our phones, and everything we see in there, I'm going to call BS on probably about 75% or 80% of it.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some unfortunate people that are susceptible to believing these things, whether left, right, center. Even if you take the political part out of it, it could be anybody following a health guru,
mm-hmm.
or somebody who telling you how to fix your car. Next thing you know, you kind of really messed up your car. So you don't know what kind of information you're getting. So it's good to have, I guess, a good set of people to hang out with to be able to help and, maybe be a good role model for you, or it's definitely the parents, And I was an only child for a while, and I can say for certain that I created my own fantasy world sometimes to entertain myself. You didn't have any money, you have only a couple of action figures, you get lost in the fantasy. And then once you get to be an adult, it's kind of, you look back and say, man, my imaginary friends are pretty badass.
Yeah.
Thankfully they weren't the bad kind, which, I'm not saying I got lucky. I'm just saying, eventually we outgrow these things.
Yeah. We do. Those behaviors, all of us go through them. Again, not everybody's a serial killer that had trauma in life. There's that catalyst. What that catalyst is, I wish we knew, then we'd be able to catch all these people before they do what they do. But the thing is we all go through it, but a lot of it is coping. Our parents teach us how to cope. Nobody's a perfect parent and all that. We all make our mistakes, but our parents are responsible really to keep us safe and to guide. That makes the best parent right there. To keep us safe. Safety is love and all that. It's a part of love that you show. And guidance is the part of love because you're giving them what we call a love language. You're teaching them something that's going to help guide them. We talk about this with my group, Wardruna, the healing group. Stacia had this thing, it's called love language. Some of the most abused people that come to see us, they're abused their whole life. They don't remember anything good about their parents. And they have hate, and they're going down the wrong path. So we always stop them. We want them to look in the mirror, and we want them to say, what's one thing about your parents that they taught you? Oh, she taught me how to sew. So with that sewing, you learn how to sew your pants so there was less problems in your life because then you could fix your pants. You don't have to buy a new pair. That's your parents' love language. That's the only thing they knew at the time. Through all the abuse and all other stuff, they took the time and love to show you how to sew your pants. So people forget that. They only want to pinpoint in on the negative things. And that's why as kids develop into adulthood, that's so much hate and what they went through and that misunderstanding of what that is. Yes, we're all going to go through it, but there's two things that you're going to face in life. You are the one that's supposed to go forward. Either you could let your life eat you alive or you could overcome it. So you make that decision. It's nobody else's fault but your own. We all go through this stuff really harshly, not so harshly. I don't know what the perfect storm is of the stuff that we go through. We all go through stuff. This human existence is not easy.
No.
We have to navigate and figure out behavior-wise or those types of things how to overcome it. It's a constant thing. We're constantly trying to improve in life, and we want to do that. But there are other people that unravel and become serial killers and things like that. They let that get to them. They let that put them over the edge and let it eat them alive. So,
and thankfully, it's only a very small percentage of our population that actually go over the edge. And speaking of that, we're going to bring in a second case or a story. Now, we're going to stick with the 80s. I love the 80s. I'm an 80s guy.
Yes.
And the name of this group, I'll call them a group. It almost sounds like an late 70s, early 80s pro wrestling tag team. They're known as the Ripper Crew, or they're also known as the Chicago Rippers. And just by the name itself, it gets worse. They're examples of possible a serial killer cult in modern history. I mean, it's the 80s, but still within 30 some years ago. Crimes took place between 81 and 82, and it's believed to be involved with disappearances and murders, or we're talking about up to 18 women in the Chicago area.
Yeah.
Plus or minus. Sometimes, of course, you can't rely on the words of the people who actually committed these crimes. Now, here's the scenario, and here's the strategy that they used. They would abduct women using a red van. It involved ritualistic mutilation, especially focus on the left breast of the victims. Clue number one, what we're going to get into here. The other part of it is the occult spin on this, as if the first part wasn't bad enough already, is it would take trophies home of their victims and later use them in rituals.
Mhm.
Pretty interesting and disturbing thing. Now, that's clue number two. This one I'm going to call a wild card because, according to this article that I read, there's a John Wayne Gacy connection where one of these members of this team, Robin, and I can't even say the last name, but I'll go with Geck, right?
Geck, yeah.
Oh,
Geck.
okay, yeah, I completely got that wrong. But actually, he actually worked for Gacy as a contractor. Now, and that's probably a small thing, but some people might say, "Oh, maybe did he get some sort of advice from Gacy?" And then he uses an occult spin. So I'll call that number 4, the disturbing fact about this case. So where do you want to start on this one? I'm talking, you know what? The one that sticks out. No, I'll let you take lead on this, but this whole taking trophies home with you for some of these victims, that one got me.
Well, let's put it this way. You said something very important, the left breast. So again, me with my word origins and stuff like that, and getting up on the wrong side of the bed. All right, that's one I'm going to tell you. Now, back in ancient times, the left was considered evil and the right was considered good. So if they're taking the left breast, especially, they probably assume they're killing women because they think the women are bad. All right, so they get this group together and their satanic rituals are based off of that belief, because a lot of these guys, they have those mommy issues, and that's the Ed Kemper, once he killed his mother, he didn't want to kill anymore. So in that certain situation, that's why he gave himself in. That was the pinpoint. Even Ed Gein and his pinpoint in on his mother making a skin suit to be like her again. So I don't know what it is about men and their mothers and why they hate women. And it's like the He-Man Woman Haters Club is more what they want to call the Ripper Club. But in that part of it. But really to dive deep, the Gacy part of it, I'm one of those guys that doesn't believe in a coincidence. Again, this whole case reminds me in a smaller form of what's going on right now with Epstein. I mean, all these political people, Hollywood, all connected with these ritualistic things of taking kids and eating, or being cannibals of these kids, taking the blood, all those, and grooming and all those things. This was it in another way. Have you ever heard of the Delta Project?
Shamefully, no. It sounds familiar, but I don't know the guts about it.
Okay, this is another part of this whole case, because the Delta Project's out of Chicago. There's this John David Norman. He was a massively, highly organized, nationwide pedophile trafficking ring disguised as a boys club out of Chicago. There was attachments of this Ripper Club to it with Gacy. Guess what? Nationwide, guess what else was attached to it? None other in Texas than Dean Carell, who was called the Candyman, another serial killer. The thing with Dean Carell and also Gacy used some of the kids working for him to lure other kids to come work for him. All right. Dean Carell had 2 young kids lure kids to him, he'll give you candy kind of thing. But the Candyman actually ran a candy store. So, and that's down in Texas. So that was his thing. But these kids are being systematically abducted and all that. And they're young kids with a lot of these people with that pedophile trafficking ring. Was there something to it? Was Gacy kind of involved with hiding the bodies of some of these other kills and all that, and just taking the fall for some of this stuff, or what his murders were on top of it? There's so much that goes into it. And, that convergence and all with the Ripper crew, with, the Delta Project, all this going on all simultaneously in the same time period. And, again, I don't believe in coincidence. They think Gacy passed the torch to get and all them, the crew there, giving them those tidbits or anything like that. And, you really have that grand conspiracy. You have John David Norman, right? The Delta Project, hence John Wayne Gacy, Dean Carell, the Candyman. So, and then Gacy, employing and mentoring or what they call grooming somebody to do the particular things. Robin Geck and his crew, the 4 guys that were murdering these women under the guise of a cult. Now we really look now, again, occult stuff going on now is what they consider with what was going on Epstein Island. So that's on a bigger sense. In this little part of the Delta Project was that like an inner part of that bigger project that damn well was still going on at the time, even to this day. Yes, Epstein Island, but before Epstein, there was somebody else running something that was leading this stuff. It's disgusting. There's a lot of these different people that are just watching, thinking that young kids are going to give them power. That's why these occult practice power, meaning a politician, being somebody that runs law, somebody that wants to be powerful in Hollywood. These things that are going on, that's just another case that really it kind of goes hand in hand with back then and what's going on now. It's a full circle moment. It's something a lot of us are becoming more and more aware of, and how to keep our kids safe. These trafficking things that are going on. It's just disgusting, and this is going on in our country. And I know there's people that fly from other countries to be part of this, but they're flying to our country. I know Epstein Islands and all that stuff, but still, it's people from our country running this BS. And again, hence, over 70% of known serial killer cases in the world are here in the U.S. And we're going back to the MK Ultra stuff, the government projects that they're doing, even to the point where what was going on during COVID. And, there's so many conspiracies out there, but a lot of this stuff, if you really read between the lines and get rid of the stuff that they do on the news, especially now with, they say there's this new disease, hennavirus. Yeah. At the same time, there's news of these Disney cruise and these pedophiles on these Disney cruise. Are you trying to take our attention away from it? The Epstein stuff's still going on. Just because he supposedly hung himself and all, doesn't mean it's over. It's still going on, and they're these big companies that I know damn well are part of it, and it's disgusting what money will do and what it'll do to our youth and how these kids grow up that escape from it now. They're the ones that end up becoming messed up and potentially getting to the point becoming killers, or doing the same thing that was done to them. I talked about on my show last night. When I lived in Florida and I worked for the prison system, there was basically all the pedophiles were all in this one dorm we called Charlie Dorm. And one of the inmates that cleaned my office, he always seemed like a nice guy, but it's like pedophilia, that disgusts me. But I moved back to Connecticut, and I had a friend that was in the hospital, and they were getting some surgery done, so I'm kind of waiting around. I go outside, and they had the newspaper thing where you could pull the newspaper out, and they show, the picture in there to see if you want the newspaper. There's the headline in there. There's a picture of the guy that used to clean my office down in Florida. Now I'm up in Connecticut. I'm like, what the hell is this? Of course, you're going to be shocked and surprised. So, me, I buy the paper, and I'm reading. Well, there's a thing called the Interstate Commerce Act. So when you are of a higher position, or it's made a lot of news, or you're part of law enforcement, to avoid a situation, they send you to another state to serve your time, which I think happened with him because he was in charge of kids that just got out of juvie to make sure that they were meeting their expectations and all that. So juvenile detention or those. But he had molested over 100 kids. That's why he was in prison. So now years later, the reason why he was on the front of the cover is because some of these kids are now molesting kids because that's what they learned at the young age, and they're blaming him for it. So that's why he came back into the news. Hey, the reason why I'm doing this is because this is what's done to me. So this ruined my mind. So now this is what I'm doing. That's the problem with our country. These people do this stuff. They groom these kids, and you have your things like this. The Ripper and all that, and they learn from somebody potentially from Gacy, and you got this whole other pedophile ring, and nationwide you got this stuff going on. You know, we could go on all night talking about this, but there's always some catalyst. There's that tangled web that we weave and all that, and these people are weaving it and all that. Sometimes you just have to take your hand and just rip the web down and let them know that, hey, we see you, and sooner or later, little by little, we're going to track you down.
And I think there's some efforts right now. I think, what was it? A few months ago, they found like 3,600 children or 3,000 children that were missing.
Yeah. So,
And I think, you know, not to get political, I think this was when Bongino wasn't the deputy of the FBI? I think during that time, I think they found a bunch of kids that were
well, they're finding
trafficked. Yeah.
a lot of these kids, and the problem is when they find them, it doesn't make the news because it's not part of the bigger people's agenda. So these big, powerful people don't want that to make the news. It's going on all the time. It's people like us that, you know, you read between the lines, and some things that you hear, especially nowadays having like Facebook, there's going to be somebody that talks about it. But then the big companies are going to want to say, hey, that's fake news.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Where, to be real, you really have to discern what you're seeing online. There is truth to a lot of it, or they're going to see you're just a conspiracy theorist. A lot of these conspiracy people that thought you were nuts 20 years ago, and now it's coming to fruition. You know, there's a time and place for everything. There's truth in everything. You know, there's the big lie, but then there's the underlying truth that we need to discern and find. I think, you know, with the information now, I think really that's where the mistake is. If you have the presence of mind, or to be able to read, or for somebody like me being a behaviorist, those are the things that I see. You know, I always worry about those things. I walk down the street, somebody's, God forbid, you know, want to take me out because they feel like I know too much or anything like that. I don't bother with anybody, you know. But I'll tell you this: I do see you. So I do see you and all that, and don't interfere in my life, because then, you know, I'm going to let you know. But that's the type of person I am. And, you know, it takes a lot of people to take this type of thing down. And I hope our country really wakens up to this type of stuff that's going on behind our back. So.
And interesting, though. I think more and more people are paying attention. And I think as a society, we're like, why is it still going on? And I misspoke earlier. It was deputy director of the FBI. And that's as political as I'm going to get. But
me too. I don't find it.
Sometimes the names get lost in the sauce. As long as they're doing their job, I'm a happy man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who's doing it. Now, let's look at this, because we're talking about ritual killings. We're talking about the occult, supernatural, paranormal. Let's bring this up. Because if we're talking about this country being a magnet for this sort of behavior, these crime syndicates, right? Is there something drawing? And I'm not just talking about because of the money. Of course, there's money, there's drugs, there's wealth, there's money to be made in this sort of sick behavior somehow. Whether it's a killing, whether it's the trafficking, or whatever it comes with it. What, in your opinion, what spirit do you think might be behind something like this? Because it always seems that in order for going through that to civilizations, it's not normally that a strong person gets murdered or killed so easily. They always go after what they perceive to be the most harmless, which would be a child and perhaps a female. My experience and what I've read, and not that I was there or seen, but as far as what I've studied, different cultures have practiced some sort of ritual sacrifice that usually involves a child or a female to satisfy the hunger or a demon or a spirit. What could possibly be behind this, but why is it concentrated here in this side of the world? I don't understand the connection. One would think it would happen in the Middle East or in Europe or in Asia, but what is it about the United States?
There's some truth behind, you know, hey, we live in this country. whatever, we're brainwashed to think we're the greatest country. Of course, there's no such thing as that. Wherever you live, and if you're happy, that's the greatest country. So it doesn't matter. It's on an individual thing. But really, there's some truth behind it. They used to call us the Great Satan, the U.S., the Great Satan. There's so many things that are out there, almost like to the point where if you go into biblical times, there's so much stuff and information and crazy things and trafficking and all that. It's almost like a Sodom and Gomorrah going on right now in our country. But you really look at it, there is truth. Being a demonologist, I'll really tell you that young kids really can't be possessed. There's the innocence of them. Yeah, you want to get them baptized in God, but really, we really look at kids not being possessed. It's almost like the evil uses them as a tool to get to us, the ones that are more susceptible, the ones that know what fear is. Because some kids, that fear doesn't really kick in for a little bit. But also young girls, being a virgin, that's the other life source, that power. There's that energy, a life source that, evil can't get to. But they want to use that, to get to a higher power thing or to mess with the glory of God or anything like that. Technically, the demon can't really kill anybody, but it can influence somebody to do something. Hence, why people do psyops. You influence somebody or influence a society to do stuff. Who's doing this? In theory or in your belief system, we believe that evil is doing it, that the devil is orchestrating his many, many, many fallen angels or demons to do these things and all that. A lot of times I look at evil, but some of the fallen has a warning. They come to us as a warning. Hey, you got to stop this. This influence is going on. But you have to discern what you're dealing with. And in this situation, really, there's that ultimate evil. It's all around us. It's watching the people that do good. When they see a group doing good, like somebody like myself, like Wardruna and what we're doing, we got people that come at us all the time. It's that evil constantly coming at you. They don't want you to do good because they want to keep doing this bad stuff and try and hide it away and be in that power to get us to think differently. But it's that blood sacrifice. It's the young they want to eat, they want to consume because it's innocent. Or the woman, it's a virgin. It's that energy to make them maybe feel young or powerful. And that's, I think, what our society, but a reason why it happens a lot in the U.S. is because there's so much information going on. There's so much power struggle. There's so much the way our kids are brought up and taught in school and what we learn, that psyop on top of it. There's so much information. Does this happen in other countries? Yes, in a way, but it's a different cultural approach to it. Ours is just more prevalent and what's going on. There's more information going on, but there is a lot of things that are still being hidden that we're starting to pick up on. So there's really that chaos going on. Again, more of a Sodom and Gomorrah, or, hey, I caught you, I see you now. And that power struggle between good and evil is really going on at this point.
And you used the perfect analogy of Sodom and Gomorrah, and we know how that wound up. Mm-hmm. How bad do things have to get before some outside force opposes judgment on this society?
Really, I think here in the U.S., I really believe that, let's say this hentavirus or whatever is going on, I will tell you, people are calling BS right now. And behavior-wise, some of the way people are, there's going to be enough people that are going to say, yeah, F you, to the point where our own country could, another civil war could break out. It's going to be that power struggle. It's going to let you guys are all full of you know what, and we're not going to listen anymore, and we're going to take our power back. That's really what's going to implode everything. I don't think it's going to be a meteor coming from another place to blow us up like the dinosaurs or whatever happens. Sometimes, yes, that could happen. Could there be a spiritual death? Yeah, that could happen too. And can we rise above that? Yes. There is a change going on. We're coming out of into the age of Aquarius and those, whatever people don't want to get too far off with horoscopes and those types of things, where we come out of that age of the Pisces age where it was more male dominated. You're coming into more of the goddess stuff of the Aquarius. So there's more of that even matched thing where there's going to be more emotion to it. And I think people are going to become more emotional with what's going on. It's just not going to be, this is the way it is. Nobody's going to take it's the way it is anymore. People are going to start fighting back, and it's going to be more of an emotional comeback than anything. Could we implode ourselves? Yes. Hopefully it goes the right way and people take in that and we get back whatever. I don't know, was our country ever great? Again, like you said, Diego, as long as they're doing and I feel good about myself, it is an individual thing. If I feel individually good, then I'm good. You get enough people to feel individually good, that's good. Because the only thing that you can control is the thing that's looking back at you in the mirror. So if we get enough people that like what they see in the mirror, then the rest of that energy will follow. And that's what we're hoping changes. So.
That's well said, because I think a lot of the things that are invented to help us or make us feel better, I think just make us feel worse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, we're doing it to ourselves. And just like you said, the Wardruna or the type of work that you're doing, you're trying to do a work of good and help people. And that usually gets the attention of people who's like, well, you're not doing it right. Well, that's not how I would do it. I think you guys are phony. That's how you know you're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I wouldn't want to be in your shoes because I would constantly be upset and going, oh, yeah, buddy, this and that. But I know how you handle things, and you're all doing a great job with Wardruna. And man, oh, man, I'll tell you what, I know spiritually, super strong man. I know those arrows are coming at you and they're bouncing off, but sometimes they hurt. But I know you, man. So, and the reason I say that is because you're putting a lot of miles on the car. You're going out there. You're very busy. So you're spreading the word of Wardruna out there. So you got my respect.
It is. It really comes down to this. It's simplifying things. It's knowing we're all going through the same stuff. All right. Again, life experience. Does my life experience give you a different trajectory to heal? Wardruna is made up of some of the best in the field. They all have their own businesses. They all do their own thing, but it's a Rolodex. It's me knowing that if I'm talking to somebody and let's say they're a military vet, I don't know that much because I was never in the military. I might have another psychic medium that was in the military that might be able to get a better message to them because of that familiarity. So we switch them off. We don't have the ego to say, well, this is my customer, or this is my client. No, we find out what they need and we run them through our process of Wardruna. In the field that we're in, we could be in any field. People need healing of all walks of life. Yes, we just happen to be part of the paranormal. But again, a lot with the paranormal is a lot of that trauma that's going on. A lot of people get involved in the paranormal because they're chasing their own demons. They want answers they don't understand. So they do these things. So, us being around that, we see that, we give them that outlet if they do want those answers, but in a different way where it's maybe a little healthier than trying to chase a demon and say everything's a demon. The demons are within us, and we talked about this before when I first came on your show, a few years ago. Your demons are your familiar demons. Your battle with alcohol, your battle with your trauma, your ancestral stuff that's latched onto you with epigenetics, and it keeps happening over and over again. Breaking that chain, the alcoholic, putting a name to it. It's the same thing where priests, when they battle a demon, they want to get, what is your name? Once they have that thing's name, they have power over it. That's why people that are alcoholics step in front and say, I'm an alcoholic. They put a name to it and all that. And that's what takes that trauma away. And we work on people one person at a time sometimes, but we go and we talk to all these groups. We give them that the ability, especially with a home case, because I've been doing thousands of home cases. You know, a home case to me, I could get on the phone and solve it in 5 minutes, don't have to go there. It's still considered a case. So when I say thousands, people are like, when do you have the time to do that? No, you know, it could be 10 minutes there. You give somebody the right words, but to discern what to say to a person to help them through that situation. And, you know, majority of home cases, I'd say 95% of the time, it is trauma based. They've manifested their own haunting, and we have to work through that. And again, home cases are not for, you know, the weak-minded or the unorganized. There's a lot that goes into it, but when you do go, you do have to counsel and all that. And remember simplicity. When I go into a home case, my main goal, did I help my client and did I help spirit? Once you do that, usually you're going to have a conclusion to help that family or help the spirit maybe make a transition. So, and that's what it's all about. So, and you have to be able to get to the bottom of that. It's not easy. I say it's easy with those words I say, but there's a lot that goes into knowing the history, being able to discern and psychologically and question the people you're dealing with and what you are dealing with overall. So it's hard. It's not easy. Not everybody could do it.
You are the man for the job, and you have a great network of friends and supporters on the same mission as you. And before we go, I know Paracon season is just around the corner. And I know you and the Shaman got a lot of things planned. So real quick, what's coming up with Paracon? Who's going to be there? Where's it going to be at? And when will it be?
So our first big event of the Shaman and the Shaman of the season, of course, will be July 11th in North Haven, Connecticut. We have an awesome lineup. We have everything you could think of. We have horror. We have cryptid people. We have UFO, paranormal, everything you could think of in the weird community that we call the metaphysical, paranormal, or supernatural, whatever you want to call it. So Ari Lehman and James Stokes. So basically, Ari Lehman was the first ever Jason Voorhees, and James Stokes is one of the most recent ones. So we have the bookends of the character. Of course, the character will always go on in history, but we have them coming, and there's so many people that are going to be there. You know, www.paracon with 2 N's.org. And you have everything there. Again, July 11th on there. If you want to stay at the hotel where it's going on, if you're going to be there for the weekend, the tickets are on there. So that's going to be a good one. August 8th and 9th, our next big event in Hartford, going to be at the old State Building, which when the old State Building wasn't there, it was fields. There was this field back in the late 1600s. And that's where the gallows were, where they hung the people accused of witchcraft, which in Connecticut, 45 years before Salem, that was going on. It was the first in our new country. And they were exonerated a few years ago. We're going into our 3rd year since the exoneration. So we're doing this festival. It's the Connecticut Witch and Culture Festival. That's August 8th and 9th. And then our biggest end of the year one we do is the Salem Paranormal and Horror Fest. That one will be November 14th this year. So that's just the Shaman and the Showman. But the Wardruna crew, we're going to be everywhere. And all the places that Station I can't be, somebody in our group will be there talking about Wardruna. So we're covering the whole gamut of the country. We're going to be in New Orleans. We're going to be at the Cleveland Paracon. We're going to be in New Jersey at the Hollow. We're going to be at the Underworld Culture Con in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We're going to be at the Gettysburg Bash, you know, all the stuff going on with the Shaman and the Showman. Haunted Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania will be there quite a bit. That's like our home away from home place, which is right near us, pretty close to Cleveland where we are. But yeah, we're all over the place. I think we got about 19, 20 events during the spooky season. So those miles are going to keep going on the car. We're going to keep bringing message. We're going to keep giving people, you know, a way to heal and show them that there's a different way of approaching, whether it be the paranormal or just getting through life and psychology of it. So I'm excited about what we have in store and getting the word out.
I'm excited for all of you. And I know that I'm going to cross the roads with you here in July, not too far from where I'm at. So it'll be our first time meeting in person. I've known you now for about close to 3 years, and it's always been here on the shows and through our common friends. But yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you and your network. And equally as important before I go, because I would feel like I would failed as a host for our good friends, the listeners of Let's Find Out, they want to tune into your new show, Profile. Where can they watch?
So Profile is on every Thursday, as long as like not this one that we just did before this. I had a family member pass away, so they had to run a repeat. But it's always good to rewatch them because I'm teaching people the art of profiling and what to look out for in all aspects. But Profiled is on every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can see it live on YouTube and Facebook through the All Access Network Television. So that's what you pull up. Make sure you subscribe to them on YouTube, and you can be able to watch the show. Of course, there's so many different people that post it on Facebook. So anybody go on me. I suck at all this stuff, so I don't know how to pull it up and carry it on my own channel. But, you know, the producer of the show, her name is Gwen Johns. You could go to her site, and it goes live through her site, or the head of All Access Network Television, Letriana Brown. You could go to hers and pick it up, or, of course, All Access Network Television on Facebook. It carries also. So.
Awesome, man. And I know you do a great job on the show. We can learn so much from you. All the disturbing but fun facts that you bring out. And my friend, thank you for coming back on Let's Find Out. It's been a while since I've talked to you, and I look forward to seeing you in July, my friend.
That is going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe you could give me like a pile driver, like your old wrestling days. Or a little bear hug action. There you go. So that might last because we're a little older now. I don't think our bodies would put up with that in the old Gettysburg battlefield bash. So
I'll tell you what, I got 2 months to train, so one or the other will happen. I'll probably you won't see it coming.
I don't know if I could still take a fall like I used to, but who knows?
Me neither, man. Hey, man. Love you, man. Thank you for coming on the show again.
Thanks, my brother. We'll talk soon.
Copyright Diego the Podcaster. All content for Let's Find Out is the property of Diego the Podcaster and is served directly from our servers with no modification, redirects, or rehosting. All celebrity impersonators are paid performers. The impersonated celebrities do not endorse or promote any views or opinions expressed by our guests, Diego the Podcaster, or Let's Find Out. The information shared on Let's Find Out with Diego is provided on an as-is basis, with no guarantees of completeness, accuracy, usefulness, or timeliness.